all business in Sidney and the village of Sidney will be helped from that because you'll have more people entering the area. Thank you.
Any further comments? Okay.
If I may, I don't. I guess what I want to say is that I don't think the dam ought to be a permanent liability. Certainly it is an asset. Certainly it can be a benefit to the community. But if year after year, and I don't know that this is the case, but if year after year it continues to show a deficit and take resources from the town that could be very well used in other directions, then I think a serious look needs to be taken at it. I like John's idea about maybe having somebody that's more professionally versed in running that, take a serious look at what that would entail for the town.
Anyone else? Could you address the subject of conflict of interest and adherence to the current code of ethics in Sidney? What about a board of ethics and penalties? And we will begin again with Tobias Whitaker.
I get all the easy ones. So, you know, I think right now that they have that. I think the problem is that it's self-imposed, right? They're supposed to police themselves. So I think maybe what in best case scenario would need to take place is that the voting public would need to step forward with petitions, which I believe they already have. And I believe that it would be the responsibility of the town's attorney to then enforce that activity.
Gene Pickford.
I think every town board member takes an oath of office, and that oath, while it is not complicated, is a very direct one, and says that you will uphold the responsibilities of a town council person or whatever, and will support the processes as defined in the state of New York, or words to that effect. I think anyone running for this position ought to be able to declare quite openly that they do not have a conflict of interest, that they're open for public scrutiny or accountability in whatever way the town chooses to define that. And I think we all ought to be comfortable with that, including those that are presently on the board.
There is a code of ethics, and everybody should follow it, and that's in place. I think it's up to the individual councilman to know enough to not vote on something that there is a direct conflict on, and the community should point out, as I'm sure they would and they should, what they perceive as a conflict of interest. But hopefully any individual board member will choose not to vote on an issue and say so in public.
Thank you, John Schaeffer. Gregory McCann.
There is an ethics in there, but it's self-policed, like it was brought up. What we could do is appoint two people, one from each side, a Democrat and Republican, to review some of the meetings and see if it's being overseen as the right way. Nobody's getting out of control at the meetings. Because everybody has to be treated like an adult and a human. We can't go and yell and scream at each other. I think that's where this question came from somebody out there. With some of the meetings, it's a half hour yelling some nights. And it's not, you belittle people when you just start screaming back and forth at each other. Everybody around you. So there should be, there is an ethics involved, but it is not being policed because it's self-policed.
Bill Heath.
Yes, I do know there is a code of ethics, and I know when everyone takes the oath when they're elected to the town board, that is part of that oath to uphold the code of ethics. And yeah, I believe it is self-policed. I believe that everyone should own up to that and declare or not vote if there is a conflict. And I do think the public has a right to bring that up if they see a conflict of interest or a break in the code of ethics. They need to bring that up. So it's everybody should be watching what the town is doing.
Okay, I'm going to intercede here because I don't think any of you gentlemen answered the second part of the question. So I'll give you an extra 30 seconds. What about a board of ethics and penalties? Tobias Whitaker.
I think I did, Mr. Pollack. I think that having the attorney follow through on that, that in itself would go through and enforce the penalties. I'm not sure what the specific penalties are for somebody in that position, though. Do you lose your seat? Is there a fine? Does the vote get tossed to the side? So that's my angle.
Gene Pickford.
I'm not aware of what the penalties are in place at the present for failure to fulfill the duties of the office. And I would see that if you're violating the code of ethics in some fashion, you have violated the role of your office. And what the accountability process for that is, I don't know, but I hope there is one.
John Schaeffer.
It would seem that if you violated the code of ethics, you should be impeached. Simple, case closed.
Gregory McCann.
If you are held in violation of the code of ethics as a town council after you're sworn in, you will be removed from office. Or like people you'll see that just will disclose their position, just quit right away. But violation of the code of ethics, it's not yelling with somebody or getting into an argument. There's some major infractions. And that's why when they say penalties, what do you mean penalties? You can't vote at one meeting, you can't go to a meeting, we got to keep the town functioning.
Bill Heath.
I'm not aware of what the penalties are for breaking the code of ethics, but there should be, and I think that if there aren't any penalties, then I think we should create them, and it should probably be up to the attorney, the town's attorney, to enforce that. But again, I think the public needs to be aware of what's going on, keep an eye on that, and bring it up so that the attorney can do something about it.
Any other comments? Okay. How do you plan to deal with all the problems a pipeline and fracking would cause the town? And we will begin with Gene Pickford.
Let me split them apart, if I may. One is the pipeline, and the other is fracking. As I said earlier, I think the pipeline ought to be rooted in such a way that it does not adversely impact anybody's property who doesn't want it. I think there are present easements in place where that could be accomplished. That probably would not be the pipeline company's preference because it would cost them more, be more inconvenient. But I think out of respect for property owners that is the way it needs to go. As far as fracking is concerned, I think a great deal of research still needs to be done before assurances can be given that is a safe and positive process. Every reading that I have looked at, including materials from Cornell University and the University of Buffalo, is the universities themselves are having a great deal of difficulty getting objective information about all the implications of the pipeline, because all the information that the public gets is skewed one way or the other, either pro or con.
John Schaeffer.
I think the town should make a special effort to make sure that our roads are protected and rebuilt after heavy use, if that kind of an industry should come here. That's very important. I understand in Pennsylvania they've done that, and roads have been built twice as good as they were before that kind of industry came to town.
Okay. Gregory McCann.
The question was, how would we protect the town if with the pipeline and fracking come to the town already?
How do you plan to deal with all the problems a pipeline and fracking would cause the town?
So they're already assuming we have the fracking in town. They just want to make sure, sir. With all that, we'd have to hold the companies reliable right away from day one, with the roads, with the infrastructure, with the housing, of bringing outside laborers in here to do the work. Because a lot of people heard about these work camps they build. And that's a bad thing, because then people aren't held accountable. They come and they disappear. They go back to Texas or wherever they're finding the cheaper labor from. So as soon as day one, we have to get IDs from everybody coming in to work. And this is already, like I said, the question was assuming that we got it. We'll have to protect it with the fracking. With the pipeline, we have to protect it with making sure the pipeline's checked on its regular schedule, that there's no misdamage or any misuse of it or terrorist stuff going to try to blow it up. That's, like I said, the question was already asked. It's already in place.
Bill Heath.
My first reaction would be to stop them both from coming through in the first place, but if we're assuming that they're already here, then we definitely need to hold the companies that are here accountable, because I believe that with some of the problems that I'm hearing about with the health issues, the crime, the road use, a lot of that is beyond the town's capability to fix. In some cases, the water issues endemic, it's beyond the town's beyond their means to fix those issues. So my first reaction is stop them from coming in the first place.
Tobias Whitaker.
Well, once again, assuming that it was already here, I think it would be the sort of situation where it obviously wouldn't hurt to approach a community who is already dealing with the fracking issue or a pipeline issue and see what type of safeguards they put into place to protect their town. Also to take a look at maybe some of the negative effects and how you could end up creating a roadblock in your area on that. You know, the obvious thing too is to hold the company responsible as well. I had one other thing on that, and now my mind kind of went blank. But okay, I'll leave it right there.
Okay, we'll give you another shot at it. Let's. We may have put the cart before the horse in that last question. Let's go to before fracking gets in here. What are your thoughts on home rule in the state of New York? And that's basically designed to give townships the ability to forbid fracking in this area. So we are going to begin with John Schaeffer.
I think that no industry should be picked out and prohibited ahead of time. You know, if you pick out one industry, you can pick out other industries. I think the Environmental Protection Agency has a clear job of regulating and deciding if fracking shouldn't even come. But for the town government, for a town board, that's primary responsibility is taking care of the finances of the town, taking care of town projects. It shouldn't be involved with the issue, especially when professionals statewide are already dealing with the issue.
Gregory McCann.
I totally agree with the home rule. I'm here to represent the people. And if the vote went whichever way the majority of the people want, the fracking or against the fracking, that's the way my vote would go. That's the way I stood on this from day one. That's why people ask me. I do not have a private agenda with fracking. I do not own anything in the oil company. I do not own hundreds of acres somewhere in Delaware County. And my representation for the people would be home rule. And both sides don't like this, the pro and con, because everybody's trying to push their side in front of the other. But if we all voted on it and we found out which way the community wants, I would represent the community. I would back the community 100%.
Bill Heath.
I definitely agree with home rule. I believe that every town has that right to decide whether an industry like this should come in or not. We have a responsibility to protect our people, our land, their health, and I think we have the right to do that.
Tobias Whitaker.
Home rule, I'm all for it. I think that it's an example of democracy at its best. The local people have a voice, decide what they want done with their area. The one thing I would like to point out, though, is that you can't have home rule and also support eminent domain.
Gene Pickford.
With a vast experience of a one-day seminar at the Albany Law School, and they suggested to us that the strongest thing a town could do would be to have a comprehensive master plan in place that totally defines the environment of their town, not specifically focused against any particular industry, be it gas or anything else, but defining the nature of the atmosphere they want, the ecology they want to maintain, the stress on their roads, and every other aspect of the community. If that's defined in a master plan, that is the strongest statement a community can make in response to giving definition to industries like the gas that will come through.
Anybody want to expand or question anything? Okay. The governor has imposed a 2% tax cap on town budgets. How do you plan on not exceeding this cap with the rising costs of wages, pensions, health insurance, and utilities increasing greater than 2% annually? And we will begin with Gregory McCann.
To look at the budgets, I have to see all the numbers, and we're not privy to see that being outside the board sometimes. To go under 2%, I would not have a layoff. If we had to cut jobs, it would be by attrition after people retired. But it can be done, and it can be kept under. We'd have to tighten the belts up for the overtime and other things that we spend money on. And sometimes you can go over that 2% tax levy or rule that the governor put in if there's a special cause, if the flood or something tragic happened, or we need money because a building fell down or a road collapsed. There is ways to go around that 2% cap. Thank you.
Bill Heath.
Again, without knowing all of the numbers within the budget and exactly where things can be cut and things like that, I just think we need to show some fiscal responsibility and actually use the money we have and the money we bring in through taxes accordingly and show a lot of fiscal responsibility while doing that.
Tobias Whitaker.
I'm in the same boat as a lot of these guys. Without seeing the specifics, I know at this point, if the information I have is correct, though, that we're in a situation where there's a 0% increase we're looking at this particular year. I don't know if that's something that we necessarily even have to worry about at this point. I think the other thing we need to keep in mind, too, is that we can be responsible with the budget while at the same time making sure that we continue to maintain our roads and to maintain the health of the overall community as far as infrastructure and things along those lines. We definitely have a little bit of flexibility on the budget at this point.
Gene Pigford.
I'm not sure that the governor's mandate ought to be the driving force that keeps the 2%. I understand it, but maybe that motivation ought to come from our own level, that our community is about at the maximum level of what it can pay tax-wise. And so we need to be our own best stewards in that area and manage our dollars carefully and well so that the level we have is still a workable one.
John Schaeffer.
You keep the 2% cap by going through each and every line of the budget and making sure you're not more than 2%. There was a big effort to pass a local law to override the 2% tax cap, which I vehemently oppose. I think that's the one thing Governor Comer, I can give him lots of praise and credit for, is coming out with that 2% cap. Landowners, year after year, were facing 3%, 4%, and 5% tax increases in many communities. Governor Cuomo had the wisdom to look and say, that's not sustainable. And I praise that law, and I wouldn't override it for any reason.
Any comments?
And one other thing,
sure.
we have reserve funds for emergencies. You talked about times you would override it. That's the importance of having set money aside every year for these unexpected things like floods and et cetera.
Anybody want to comment? Okay. Can you, without simply reciting the usual generic platitudes of more jobs or lower taxes or prosperity for all, articulate a vision for Sidney and our region 5 years from now, 10 years? What do you want to see? And we will begin, I think, with John Schaeffer.
I'd like to see the door open for all sorts of people to come into town and all sorts of businesses. I wouldn't single out certain businesses and prohibit. I think everybody should be welcome to the community. 5 years from now, I look forward to the integration of many different people. I welcome the Muslim community that came to Sidney Center. And I think it's just wonderful to have all these groups of people come into town. And I hope to see 5 and 10 years from now a very large diversity of people here in Sidney. as we've seen down in New York City and in cities all over the world, all over the country.
Gregory McCann.
First of all, within the first 5 years, I would like to have the unemployment dropped and the hourly rate for jobs in the area raised for the average job. Because people making minimum wage cannot support it. So the first thing I would want to do is bring the salaries up from the companies and have companies come in that will pay a little bit more to get the people. That would be the first thing in 5 years, to get the unemployment down and salaries up a little bit. Within 10 years, I would like to see businesses come in, opening up, having the James Way place all cleared out and all brand new stores in there, and extending the town further and have more corporations coming back. Maybe get another exit off I-88 for the town of Sidney. All this makes for bigger business and more people coming in. That will not happen within a year or two. But the 5-year plan is to lower the unemployment rate, have more people go back out to working so they feel sustainable. And then the 10-year plan would be have more people coming in off the highways to get other money from just the residents in Sidney supporting themselves.
Bill Heath.
Wow, this is a tough one. Without using the jobs and the businesses come in and things like that, my vision for Sidney in the next 5 to 10 years, I believe, would be to keep this area as clean as it is now and not wreck it. I think the environment is the biggest issue here, and that's why a lot of people have come here is for the beauty of this area. And I don't think we want to destroy that. I think we want to bring some more prosperity to the area, but not ruin the image that we have. So.
Tobias Whitaker.
I would like to see us come together as a community. I would like to see different activities taking place all throughout the year. Festivals, things along those lines. Bringing, some sort of, let's be known for something. Other people in the area want to travel to Sidney to take part in maybe some sort of agricultural festival or some sort of arts festival, something along those lines. I also agree with Bill, that the nature that we're surrounded by is one of our greatest assets. I would like to see it stay the way that it is. I think that you can be prosperous and also come together as a community while at the same time making healthy, positive choices. I really believe that.
Gene Pickford.
I concur with everybody's comments. My only additional comment is all of what we are talking about is referenced in a master plan. If you read the one of 10 years ago, you would have read, for example, some of the needs of Sidney Center, one of their critical needs for septic. That was in that plan 10 years ago. Now, if we had held ourselves accountable for that 10-year process, not only on that issue, but on every other issue, and developed a strategy to address those things, even if it's on a multi-year continuum or seeking specialized funding, we wouldn't be reading 10 years later that they still have a problem in that area. Hopefully, in the next 10 years could be defined, and we could hold ourselves accountable in such a way that all these other very good ideas could indeed come to pass, but they don't just happen. You strategize for them, and you work towards making them happen.
Any other comments? Okay, Mr. Pickford, you touched on this item, but we'll give everyone a shot at it. What would be your position on the town providing the $16,750 the Sidney Center Improvement Group needs to pay for the engineering study to design building a septic system for the hamlet to put them in a position to qualify for grants and loans to build this system? And this is the first time Mr. Davis descended into the sewer. So we'll begin with Gregory McCann.
It's easy to just say, yes, give the $16,000 to the people that live in the hamlet. I knew the hamlet when it was just woods. I ran through them woods. But I don't have the town budget. I don't know if the town budget, this was brought up at the last Sidney Town Board meeting. I don't see the budget, so I can come up here and tell everybody, yeah, just give them the money. But I'd be lying. And like I said, I do not know how much money is left in the budget this year. We're already into the end of October. We have the election coming up. We have November and December. We have bills that have to be paid. And if we promise somebody money and don't give it to them, so I'd have to see if the town had the money, I'd say yes, let's do it. But I don't know if the town has the money right now. But I've been for it, but I can't promise you that because I don't know how much is left in the budget this year. Maybe we could put a few thousand away this year and a few thousand away next year. But if I come up here and say, yes, let's go through it, it's just blowing smoke in the air. Thank you.
Bill Heath.
I'm going to say yes, I would give them the money. I don't know what's in the budget this year. I know we have a 0% increase for next year. I believe that through what is in the funds that exist, the reserve, wherever that would come from, I believe that the money is there. And it's the first step for Sidney Center to make that step to whether it's a septic system, community septic, or some sort of sewer treatment. We don't know until that study is done. And I believe that once the study is done, to create whatever that system is going to be done through grants, or at least tried to be done through grants. So I think we need to give them that first step to get that where they need to be.
Tobias Whitaker.
Mr. Cordes had brought this up at the last board meeting, so among other things, I'd taken the time to look into the issue. I'm under the impression that if the $16,750 were granted, it wouldn't actually have a drastic effect on the current tax situation. It's not going to push us over the 2% tax cap. The other thing is, there are issues that are a lot more important than money. We're neighbors, we're a small community. Why would the local government want to impede the progress of Sidney Center, who has been ignored for an extremely long time by our town government? The other thing is, if we don't go through and take care of it now, and this is a conversation Bill Heath and I had a while back, this is a potential public health issue, and we're going to have to take care of it down the road, so it is going to cost us money. I think we need to step up as neighbors and take care of one another, and in order for them to get the money to step forward, they need Lamont Engineering to come in and do this, take a look at the properties.
Gene Pickford.
I've had the privilege of attending the last two Sidney Center meetings discussing this issue. And first I want to say what a tremendous resource the community of Sidney Center has been, and some of the initiatives that are transpiring there are just wonderful. I think that there may be some grant funds available for a part of it. I would like to see the town be in a position of sitting down with representatives from Sidney Center, finding out what their seed money needs are, be it 20% or whatever the amount would be, and making sure that we are able to support that so they can get the other kind of grants they need to proceed with this study. It may be that we don't need to fund the total 16.5. It might be that we could fund 20% of it and assist them in finding grant money to cover the rest. But that needs to be explored.
John Schaeffer.
Sidney Center is a small hamlet that's not on a state road. It's on a town and a county road. I would rather see the sewer system from the village of Sidney and on enlarged from this source. While I emphasize with the sewer problem there, or a grant of that large magnitude, the budget is roughly $2 million. So 2% is what, $40,000. We already likely have a $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 increase just from year to year in the budget, and I just think it would be irresponsible to throw that kind of money there for that reason at this time. I understand the need to work out the problems with the sewer there, or there maybe 4 or 5 houses could get together and agree to use one resource for their sewer, but the idea of a whole sewer system, I just don't think it's feasible at this time.
Yes, Mr. Pickford.
I think we're talking about two different things. I'm referring to an engineering study that is necessary prior to anything else being done. John is referring to the whole project, which is another major undertaking. I think, first of all, we need to get the engineering study done so we understand what the issues are, and then we have something to look at specifically in terms of how to proceed from there.
Yes, Mr. Whitaker.
I would also like to kind of add on to that, that there are certain things you need to spend money on, and people living potentially in their own sewage is one of those issues that we need to spend money on. And as Mr. Pickford said, this is simply just to bring Lamont Engineering in. That's the first step. That's all that they're asking to do. And I think it would be a great idea to sit down and have an open discussion.
Any other comments? Yes, sir.
I think a discussion about it is fine, but the town's responsibility is the roads and the highways, and we have a clear designated responsibility. The village is different. They have a sewer system and they have sewer, contracts. I know we pay for sewer in the village. The residents themselves, city center, if they can. I just don't envision that being a feasible solution to have a complete sewer system in a small hamlet on a town and county road, as opposed to a growing town on a state road, like the village of Sidney on an interstate, where there's plenty of room to grow.
Thank you, Mr. Schaeffer. Yes, Mr. Pickford.
All I'm saying is we don't know what we need until we do the engineering study. And before we get that done, we're really kind of spinning our wheels and talking in the dark. We need the engineering study done as soon as possible.
Anything else? Okay. I'm going to take a personal privilege of asking a question. No one has asked it. I'd like to know how the floods have changed this county, this area, and have changed you and the way you look at life and the way you look at how you go about your daily lives in whatever way you'd like to tell us. And we will begin with Bill Heath.
The floods of 2006 and 2011 actually did not affect our property at all, but it did affect our lives. We work very closely with the Humane Society. My wife is president, I'm secretary, and during those floods, we actually were helping people rescue animals out of this village, setting up sites where people take their animals, and you see what happens with a flood firsthand when you're downtown, and it affects everybody in the town, whether they were flooded or not. And I think it brings everybody a little bit closer, and personally, it brought me to see what the people in Sidney are like. Everybody was willing to help everybody else, so I'm just proud to be here.
Mr. Whitaker.
As far as the floods go, I'm sure there's nobody in this community that on one level or another wasn't affected by the floods, regardless if you were directly in the path of the water or simply knew somebody who was. From my perspective, I'm at the point now where going door to door, speaking with people, I keep hearing a common story that's from Oak Ave all the way over to Bridge Street, and people want to talk about the flood. But what they want to talk about is they want to talk about how their neighbors turned around and helped them out, how they gave them water, how they gave them food, how they helped them get out of the area when the flood was coming in. And that's the sort of thing I think as a community that we should be proud of, that people step up to the plate and help one another out. And maybe what we could take away from this is that there are people in our community who aren't waiting for disaster to happen to step up. There's those of us that want to help before we get to that point. So, thank you.
Mr. Pickford.
I'm recently retired, recently 2 years. I spent 40 years as an officer in the Salvation Army. In the floods of 2002 and 2006, it was our privilege to be supplying food, supplying canteens, supplying all kinds of things, and working with FEMA with this community and helping them get reestablished. I agree with Toby's comments and some of the others that the groundswell of support in this community and the extra mile stepping out. I think of Jackie and some shelter initiatives of 24 hours and how are we going to get the next meal coming through and all of those kinds of things. But what a marvelous working together there was in this community. And people have not only survived, they've grown and become stronger. I think one word of caution is we need to take a look as a community, as a town, and make sure that we are not vulnerable to similar floods. And what do we need to do at this point in time to make sure that we don't have a repeat occurrence of that? And that's true on many levels.
Mr. Schaeffer.
Andy Maviak, Jamie Roberts showed how the town and the village can come together. seeing the town trucks right downtown. I was in 2 floods, so it impacted me. I got to the point where I can't wait for the next flood because I think that's the best way to approach it. But I really was heartwarmed by the way the town came right into the town with the village. And boy, you talk about the town and the village working together. We have 2 highway departments, and what a great thing we can achieve if we try and combine resources between the town and the village, which I think should be one of the priorities in the future with the town government.
Mr. McCann.
I had on my house during the second flood, and it really didn't affect my house or my parents' house. But it was great to see the town and the village and everybody come together during a disaster. But what I want to see more with the town is to come together. We don't need a natural disaster. Let's all come together and start working together. Help people get through the snow. Help people shovel, the elderly shovel sidewalks. It's always great, and like it was great pride ever since 9/11 to see everybody in New York and America come together, which is great. But let's not wait for the next natural disaster to come together. Now people go back and they don't talk to their neighbors no more. They don't go out. They're starting to get back complacency again. It's only been a little over a year. But let's have everybody go back out and help each other. Just try to be nice to everybody.
Anyone have anything else to add? Okay. We've come to the time of the closing statements. Before we get to that, I'd like to mention that WCDO will broadcast this debate in its entirety tomorrow after the 6 o'clock news, and will broadcast it again Monday, November 5th, after the 6 o'clock news. It will also be on the internet following the broadcast tomorrow on WCDOradio.com. You can see it at any time. We will now go to the closing statements, 2 minutes duration, and we will begin with Tobias Whitaker.
Thank you. Once again, I'd like to thank everybody for taking part. It's great to see so many people come out, especially with the weather and things like that. I can keep this pretty simple. I can wrap this up for you. My perspective on this whole thing is that we're in a situation where our town government is not currently functioning in an efficient manner. It's not functioning properly. I think that it really boils down to communication. If somebody approaches the town board, they should be able to speak to the town board, air their grievance without being belittled, or just simply not even given the opportunity to speak. I think that we need to learn to come together as a community, and as I had said in the beginning, to kind of bring this full circle, it doesn't matter to me if you're a Republican. I don't care if you're Democrat or any of the third parties that are independent. All of you will have a voice with me. I would like the opportunity to be your voice on the town board, and I would sincerely appreciate it if you would consider voting for me on November 6th. Thank you for your time.
Gene Pickford.
Robert Fulgham wrote a book, Everything I Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. I'd like to suggest that that would be good reading for all of us, including the town board members. And my only other thought to you is, on election day, when you look at your ballot, if you go all the way down and to the right, that's where I am. That's my position on the ballot. It's not my political position. Please understand that differentiation. I, too, would like to thank my fellow candidates for their support and opportunity for conversation, and for everyone who was instrumental in bringing this together. Thank you.
John Schaeffer.
I'd like to thank everybody for getting together.